All right, well, good morning. It's 9 a.m. and I'll call this special meeting of the Board of Regents to order. And I'll ask Chief of Staff Nick Lajewski to please take roll.
Chair Brooks.
Here.
Vice Chair Goodman.
Here.
Regent Ariscotta.
Here.
Regent Batista. Here. Regent Boylan.
Aye.
Regent Brager.
Here.
Regent Brown.
Present.
Regent Carvalho.
Here.
Regent Del Carlo.
Here.
Regent Downs.
Here.
Regent Fernandez.
Present.
Regent Goycochea.
Present.
Regent McGrath.
Here.
You have a quorum present.
Thank you. Regent Brager, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Yes, I will. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'll now move to agenda item number 1, which is public comment. For those who'd like to call in and offer public comment, please dial 669-444-9171 and enter meeting ID 992-8475-3091 and passcode 555-555. Is there any public comment at GBC?
There's no public comment at GBC at this time.
Thank you. Then we will move into public comment here in Las Vegas.
Good morning, Chair Brooks, Vice Chair Goodman, Board of Regents. My name is Glenn Christensen, and I'm a longtime education advocate in our community, and in particular, an advocate for Nevada State University. Currently, I'm a member of the advisory committee to the NSHE NSU Presidential Search Committee. This will be the third time I've served in this capacity, which encourages me to offer my thoughts on this agenda item today. We find ourselves in a bit of an awkward situation. I understand that allowing Dr. Lopez Lassiter to be a candidate for the president role at NSU requires this body to waive an existing rule. Given my own professional background, I don't take waiving rules lightly, but in this case, I think waiving the rule is appropriate. In making this suggestion, I'm not endorsing anyone for the role because I don't know who all has applied for the position. I do encourage casting a wide net to include anyone who would like the opportunity to be considered for the position. The most important role of any board is selecting the leader of the organization. Nevada State is a special place, and the campus deserves the right person for the presidency. Including Dr. Lopez Lassiter in the presidential search process should not disadvantage anyone, because hopefully all the candidates applying for the job have the confidence that they are the best person for the role. The process requires all the candidates to demonstrate that they can lead NSU to realize its exceptional potential, including Dr. Lopez Lassiter, if you approve this agenda item today. I'm honored to participate in this process and look forward to meeting the finalists for the presidency. Ultimately, I'm confident that Chair Carvalho, the NSU Presidential Search Committee, and this body will find the right person for Nevada State. Thank you.
Dr. Bill Robinson, I know I promise not to be here very often, but seems like lately I am. You have a very long report about administrative overhead, which doesn't tell you anything about anything. I want to go back to 1999, and again, all the data I'm giving to you and all the data I've sent to you are from public documents. I'm not making anything up. In 1999, we had 3 vice presidents. We have 12 now, 12. In 1999, we had 6 assistant and associate vice presidents on the whole campus. We're well over 20 now. It's impossible to tell. We don't publish we used to publish the org chart every year. We don't do that anymore. I'm hoping President Hebe will do some of those things again, go back to publishing the org chart and give us more data. But we don't have that anymore. Every dean in 1999 had 1 associate dean. Now we have vice deans, associate deans, assistant associate vice deans. We have this whole huge collection of folks in those roles. We used to have department chairs. Now we have department chairs. We also have assistant chairs, associate chairs, And so you have lines in there that say there are this many faculty in the College of Engineering. Well, that line includes the associate deans, the assistant deans, the vice deans. You don't actually know from that how many people are administrators in that college and how many people are actually teaching students in that college, because that line includes all of that stuff. We have our student population's up 55% since 1999. Our administrative overhead is up 300%, 400%. Some of that's necessary. The board has new rules, the feds have new rules, we get all that. Our role has changed a little bit, but not to justify that amount of more and additional administrative overhead over that time period, in my opinion. So I just want to say there's a lot of hidden information in there that you should get people to lay out for you before you decide that we don't have too much administration. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is David Cooper, D-A-V-I-D-C-O-O-P-E-R, and I'm an associate professor of chemistry at Nevada State University. First, I'd like to talk about item number 2 and state that I am not in favor of changing the rules for our presidential search. Trust and leadership is one of the biggest issues right now on campus, and changing the rules mid-game is one of the practices that breaks that trust. However, the main reason I am here today is to ask the board to look into a new business item for future meeting on clarifying language in the handbook or other places around the term administrative faculty. The issue I have around this term stems from linguistic shortcuts most people use to refer to 2 other groups on campuses. Administrative leadership, i.e. the executive and high-level managerial positions, which is often shortcut to just administration, and academic faculty, i.e. the instructional positions, which is often just shortcut to faculty. The significant overlap in these terms can cause undue confusion and unintentionally lump our administrative faculty in with one or the other group, often to their detriment. For instance, in the previous Board of Regents meeting, administrative faculty on the low end of salary ranges were cut out of the salary range adjustments due to concerns around executive level administrative salaries. A clarification around administrative faculty and a separation of this group from the executive administration would also bolster shared governance. Currently, only some of the NSHE institutions have separate governance groups for these individuals, and thus their voice is lost in the blending. However, even when they do have their own governance structure, they do not have much of a voice at these meetings, and there's no mechanism currently to give them a seat at the table. Providing a new term that contains no overlap in the other existing groups, such as a term like professional employees, would cleanly separate this group and allow for a greater voice to be given to this important group on our campuses. Thank you for your time.
Hi, good morning. My name is Tracy Sherman. I am a past Faculty Senate Chair, a current Faculty Senate Chair, a past Chair of the Faculty Senate Chair Council. I would like to ask you to do one thing. Please listen to the faculty members who speak to you on these issues, particularly number 2. Thanks.
Good morning, Chair Brooks, Vice Chair Goodman, and Regents. My name is El-Hashmi Bouali, B-O-U-A-L-I. I'm an Associate Professor of Geosciences and the Faculty Senate Chair at Nevada State. I would like to express my opposition to Agenda Item 2, deviation from current board code, re the NSU presidential search. I am speaking on behalf of many faculty to say that we believe this would undermine and erode the trust the board has rightfully earned from faculty at Nevada State. I say this from lived experience. Current NSU leaders are suffering the aftermath of an historic erosion of trust, lost from previous leadership because of an allowed double standard, a rules for thee, not for me approach to decision-making and shared governance. For example, there have been many instances since 2020, when I was hired at NSU, where an academic faculty member or an administrative faculty member has requested a promotion of some form, coordinator to director, non-tenure track to tenure track, and been told no, many times with a statement that such a title change would require a national search. Yet as board policy allows in Title IV, Chapter 8, Section 7, the president may waive the search requirement for any position so long as they provide a list to NSHE and or the board every year. You can see a history of these selective promotions at the highest pay grades at Nevada State without national searches, well documented on page 73 of the supplemental material for Agenda Item 5, a track record of rules for thee, not for me, that has been interpreted by many employees that only those at the top, closest to leadership, benefit through an undefined selective process. Therefore, to avoid erosion of trust and the optics that the board can choose when convenient to deviate from its own rules, and that only those closest to the board may benefit through exceptions to those rules, I ask the board to oppose Agenda Item 2 as written, and I'll conclude with a suggestion. bad decision to have it on the page there. If the board is serious about allowing acting presidents to apply for permanent president positions, then do it properly and change the code. Do the slow grind that is shared governance and allow for feedback and discussion, and change the code so all current and future acting presidents can apply, and not only when the board finds it convenient. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. SCS, is there any public comment on the phone?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have one caller. Caller with the phone number ending in 6461. Please press *6 to unmute. State and spell your name for the record, and you have 2 minutes to address the board.
Good morning. My name is Eric York, Y-O-R-K, Faculty Senate Chair at Western Nevada College. This comment is in regard to agenda item number 2. First, I would like to emphasize that we do not hold any opinion regarding any candidate. Our concern is more directly linked to shared governance processes. Only a few months ago, this body made an informed decision based on input from all stakeholders, most notably those from Nevada State University. Their position was clear. If the body of NSU stakeholders have not clearly expressed firm support for the proposed deviation from policy, we would urge the board to carefully consider implications of the proposed deviation. While it's perhaps belaboring the obvious to emphasize the following, I'm going to do so anyway. Perceptions of actions carry considerable weight in any governance processes, in some cases as much as the actions themselves. We have appreciated the genuine spirit of collaboration in a shared governance environment over the last several months. We would strongly encourage the continuance of same. Thank you.
That's all the callers we have at this time, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And with that, we'll move into agenda item number 2. This is an authorization to deviate from process defined in the Board of Regents policy for Nevada State, for the Nevada State University presidential search. This agenda item is brought to us by 3 regents who made a request for this agenda item to be heard. Those regents are Regent Del Carlo, Regent Brown, and Regent Fernandez. And so I'd like to turn this over to Regent Del Carlo, who can begin the conversation. Regent Del Carlo?
Thank you, Chair Brooks, and I'm sorry I'm not able to be there with you today, but we've had some very much inclement weather. Yes, I requested this, and I did not take this lightly either. And I'm in my 10th year, and I've never seen a deviation from the policy, but we are able to deviate, and it was very much explained up in our last meeting in Great Basin College. We spent about 25 minutes talking about acting interim, and there was a lot of clarification on all of that. So here we have an opening at Nevada State. I know I respect the process that was held by everyone. And I know normally there's like a pecking order on a campus for OIC, et cetera. And there was issues at the campus from what I could see. And we ended up with Dr. Amber Lopez Lassiter taking on the acting role at a subsequent meeting. And I immediately saw some really positive leadership traits. And I am all about leadership. And to me, this is what this has come down to. It's leadership. She immediately, as the OIC, did some very difficult personnel issues. And she did it with grace, I thought, and she really protected her institution and NSHE as a whole. So I just saw such courage doing that. And leadership's so important to me. I see leadership, you got to have competence. You got to be able to communicate. She's been a tremendous communicator since the time she's become our OIC to the board. She certainly has commitment. She's been at your college for 9 years. She's very compassionate. I would say this deviation is not giving her the job. All it's doing is allowing her, giving her the opportunity to apply for the job because some circumstances changed. And our Chief General Counsel made that very clear in Elko. I went back and listened to the recording several times. We talked about this for 25 minutes, that people can change minds and you can deviate. So it would have never been on the agenda today if we were violating anything. It's just that we haven't done it before. And yes, to anybody that says we need to look at the code, absolutely we need to look at the code, but this is the day to do it. We're going to have to do that at a later meeting. All I'm trying to do is give her the opportunity to apply. Doesn't mean she's going to be in the pool, because then the next part of that process is she's just like everybody else that applies. Then you have a search chair, you have the chancellor, and you have the academic search who was selected. They go through all the applications, and they're the ones with a special emphasis on the chair of the committee who will determine who the finalists are. All this is giving her an opportunity to apply. So thank you.
Thank you, Regent Del Carlo. Regent Brown?
Thank you, Chair. Regent Brown for the record. Just to piggyback on my colleague, I know I sat through the first meeting when they picked the search committee agency, and academic search is the one that we use to find Dr. Klippenstein. This body has used them several times, and I trust their process. I trust the chair of the committee. And so for me, I also feel like opening or making this exception just to submit an application gives this body at the conclusion of the search the best opportunity to say that we opened it up for everyone to be able to apply, and that, we constantly talk about wanting all the options, and, when there are different avenues to something, we want to see them all, and I don't know why we would limit ourselves in this particular process. Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Brown. Regent Fernandez?
Thank you so much, Chair Brooks. I want to echo what Regent Brown just said here. I think this is really about being able to give us the option. When we had this discussion in previous meetings, we were left to the rock and a hard place. We're saying we can only go in one direction only. I think now we're giving the opportunity to, again, sort of be presented or allow Dr. Lopez-Lassiter the opportunity to be able to compete for the job. And I do echo what my colleagues had said before. It's not about her getting the job. It is really just the opportunity to apply for said role. And this is really where the discussion was going then as well, right? Are we able to do both, right? Appoint her to her current role, which she's held since October, in addition to allow her to apply, and it was very clearly said no. I think that this is an opportunity for us to broaden our options. Obviously, the search committee has begun, and we do have a chair and all of the different folks who will be part of this process, but giving somebody the opportunity who is really vested in the institution, I think is also equally important. So thank you.
Thank you, Regent Fernandez. Are there other regents who would like to have a discussion about the agenda item?
Yes, Chair.
Regent Borland?
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate it. I'm against this change, and I really do believe that we should offer Regent Carvalho, who is the chair of the search, to give us her viewpoint and what she thinks about it. I would actually move to decline this, but I'd like to hear what Regent Carvalho has to say, sir. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Regent Goicoechea, were you next in line for comment?
Yes, as soon as I get all the buttons pushed in the right place. Thank you, Chair Brooks. Again, I apologize for not being there. I didn't know if it was, worth the trip down and back. I didn't think this was going to be very controversial, but I didn't read it very well. I agree. I'm not about excluding anybody from the process, but I think to approach it in this way, it really concerns me. And I think Acting President Lassiter is doing a great job. I think she's well supported down there in the system. But I think if we move ahead with this, we're really going to send the wrong signal. Now, we've been 6 months since we made this decision. We should have changed the code, not taking this on a case by case. I think we're excluding, in a lot of these searches, we're excluding a lot of good homegrown candidates just because of the criteria we've got in place in the code. So, folks, let's roll our sleeves up and take care of the code instead of case by case, because I think it sends the wrong message. And I've got a tremendous amount of respect, and I don't want to exclude anybody, but I think we're sending a message out. Hey, no use to apply. This is going to be an inside track. Look what the board did. So, and I don't think that's the case, but I'm afraid that's going to be the perception. So I don't want to exclude anybody from being able to apply, but we've got a signed contract in place with Amber Lopez Lassiter, and as the acting and under the existing code, she can't apply. We need to change the code. And again, I'd love to see a lot of the code go to the shredder. Just in my 14 months I've been here, we really need to get back and get to work on it. So with that, I'll thank you.
Thank you, Regent Gokachia. Regent Breger.
Thank you very much. Susan Breger for the record. I've had a hard time with this. There's been a number of conversations, and I am just still going to listen. I have not made a decision at this point in time, and I'm a big decision maker. If this had been done 6 months ago, 3 months ago, 4 months ago, I might be able to feel different, but I see it as perception is reality, unfortunately. And when you have perception as reality, it goes, the presidential searches are small when you go across the United States. I know what it was like to do the chancellor search, and we were very fortunate that we were able to identify an incredible person to lead us. And I think that we have amazing leadership at NSU, and it's unfortunate that it wasn't interim in the beginning, and I had made that statement, and I've had that conversation. I normally know how I'm going to vote. This one is hard, because I do feel like you are doing an amazing job. And I feel like I agree on the chancellor search. I thought that the criteria that was forced on us and the way that it took place, it turned out amazing. But I do think we need to look at the code also. So I don't have a decision on what I'm doing with this moment, which is so rare for me. It's unbelievable. But I don't really I'm going to say it this way. I don't like being put in this position. I think it's a difficult position. It's not equitable. And I know that we have people that have come up to speak on both sides of it. And I don't even like how I'm talking now. It's not how I normally even speak, but it's just an unfortunate situation that we're put in right this moment. So I just want to hear what other people are saying. That's not how I'll make my decision. I'm also one that's wanted a voting system for 3 years, so we don't have to be archaic saying our votes and people can change their mind along the way because they might be more comfortable. And I think that's so wrong. I think this should be a written vote, and then maybe people will vote their conscience. Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Breger. I just noticed that there's regents up in the north who have indicated they have questions. So we'll go to Regent Downs, then Regent Arascata.
Thank you, Chair. So I just have a question to the three regions who brought this forward. And I think it was mentioned something's changed, or the circumstances have changed. I mean, I'm not trying to challenge anyone, but can you elaborate on what has changed from the time that this was made an acting non-searchable role to now? That is it performance? Is it something else? I'm curious what has changed to necessitate this change in our or this, I guess, circumvention of policy.
Regent O'Carroll.
Chair Brooks, I'll be happy to answer that.
Thank you.
What I saw is leadership. I see leadership as an art. Not everybody is a leader, and good leadership is really rare. And we're leading these institutions, affecting students, managing many, many things. And I saw just great leadership qualities in the officer in charge who became our acting. And I would go back to someone else that said, I agree the code is wrong. And how the motion was even presented when we had to vote. I remember Regent Boylan requesting we use the registry again, which worked out beautifully for us at CSN. But that we couldn't even discuss that because that wasn't in the motion or in the briefing paper that it could even be considered. So this whole policy, I agree, needs to be changed. There's no doubt about that. And I just saw strong leadership, and it's just the opportunity. It's not necessarily she's going to get the job or any of that, because she still has to go through the entire process. It's just that she's getting the opportunity. It's all about leadership for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Regent Arascata.
Thank you, Chair Brooks. With this, and especially a few months ago, a signed contract, it shows good faith. And that good faith is with the understanding that the terms would be honored of that contract. Regardless if you're looking at a home mortgage or any contract in which we sign, contracts are built on mutual trust and accountability. If a signature is disregarded on it risks setting a troubling precedent. And it's one that could undermine the confidence not only for executive leadership, but could also be detrimental to the relationship that we, NSHE, has with faculty, classified employees, and students who rely on the integrity of those institutional agreements. Upholding signed commitments, it ensures fairness, stabilities, and trust across the entire system of higher education. But by allowing this policy change, it will also cast a chilling effect on future searches. It'll tarnish the reputation of NSHE with search consultants, and it will have the appearance that the fix is in for this position. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Regent Arascata. I also see the Chair of Chairs has a comment, so if you'd like to provide a comment, please go ahead.
Chair Brooks, after that, me, please.
Thank you, Chair Brooks. Hopefully I found the mute button this morning and all of our snow. So at the September meeting of the Board of Regents, the board listened carefully to the constituents of Nevada State University, and after thoughtful deliberation, selected an acting president for NSU. That decision followed multiple listening sessions with campus stakeholders and reflected a clear understanding of the important distinction between an acting and an interim appointment. The board's action demonstrated respect for process, policy, and the input of the NSU community. Title II, Chapter 1, Section 1.5.5 of Board Policy specifies that an acting president is not eligible for consideration for the permanent position. This provision is not incidental. It reflects a deliberate governance framework designed to preserve fairness, transparency, and institutional integrity during leadership transitions. The distinction between acting and interim appointments was understood at the time of selection, and it shaped the expectations of the campus community. Should the Board of Regents now choose to deviate from this established policy, such action would raise significant concerns regarding adherence to shared governance principles. Shared governance is a foundational tenet of NSHE and a guiding principle for institutional decision-making. It ensures that leadership transitions are conducted with clarity, consistency, and trust in established procedures. It is in that spirit of shared governance and with deep respect for the authority and responsibilities of the board that we, the Council of Chairs, respectfully request that the board carefully consider the implications of deviating from its own policy. Upholding established procedures affirms the integrity of the process, reinforces trust across the institutions, and sustains the collaborative governance model that serves NSU and NSHE so well. Thank you very much for your thoughtful consideration.
Thank you, and I should have made it clear that your title is the Faculty Senate Chair of Chairs. Thank you for your comments. Regent Borland, we'll go to you right after we hear from regents who haven't had the opportunity to speak yet, and I'll move over to Regent Carvalho.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've written down my comments so that I had to get everything out that I wanted to say and do it in a concise manner. So I want to start by saying whatever decision is made today As chair of the Nevada State Search Committee, I will continue to uphold my responsibility of protecting the integrity of the search, preserving public trust, and advocating for the best next leader of Nevada State, and upholding sound governance practices that are paramount to the search process. With that said, I want to start by stating that Acting President Lopez Lassiter has done a great job as a temporary leader of Nevada State for the past 4 months, and she's made some needed and difficult decisions. The Board of Regents handbook explicitly distinguishes between acting and interim leadership appointments. Under current policy, as an acting president appointed to serve during a search as a temporary steward of the institution, they're not eligible to be a candidate for the permanent position. The separation protects the integrity of the search process and fosters a fair and competitive field for all applicants, internal and external. Our policy structure provides alternatives, including appointing an interim president under defined conditions and with board approval if there is consensus that the temporary leader may be a viable long-term candidate. This was an option in October for the board to consider. Prior to that meeting, the chancellor, board chair, and vice chair conducted listening sessions with the Nevada State campus community, and the chancellor recommended to the board, after careful consideration of those listening sessions, an acting president. And the board supported this unanimously. I don't believe that we were between a rock and a hard place. Our current policy is transparent and asks for a recommendation of the chancellor to guide our decision. We followed the chancellor's recommendation based on campus input. Along the way, there were other choices that the acting president could have made should she become interested in applying for the permanent position. I believe that the board is aware that allowing an acting president to become eligible once the search commences risks blurring the lines between stewardship and candidate advantage, potentially giving an acting president a structural advantage in a process meant to be open and unbiased. A core principle of public governance is fairness. Even if no improper conduct occurs, the appearance of conflicting advantage can undermine public confidence in both the search process and the board's decision-making. Continuing to maintain the strict eligibility distinction dictated by our own policy helps to assure stakeholders that the search is transparent, equitable, and insulated from internal power dynamics. An acting president, by virtue of position, has institutional visibility, access to stakeholders, and daily engagement in high-level decision-making, advantages that other candidates do not share on an equal basis. Permitting eligibility partway through the search effectively places one candidate in a position of advantage, which can deter qualified external applicants, stifle competition, and potentially result in a less rigorous search. Our policy aligns with best practices in higher education governance that safeguard search integrity by separating acting stewardship from candidacy. Given the importance of the Nevada State University presidency to students, faculty, and the broader community, preserving that spirit and adhering to our policy is in the best interest of both the institution and the system and the board, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Carvalho. We'll go back to Regent Boylan.
Thank you, Chair. I know I should just keep quiet after what Regent Carvalho just said, but going back to what Regent Gocochea and Regent Arriscata said, this looks like the fix is in, and that's why I'm against it. We are midstream in the middle of a journey, and we are going to change captains and change our view. It's a total disadvantage to any other people who are thinking of applying. I'm not saying that Ms. Lassiter isn't qualified or is doing a great job of leadership. What I'm saying is it really looks like the board has been, there's more important things to be changed in our code. And this is right now in the middle of trying to select somebody. It's going to give a really bitter feeling, a bitter taste to other candidates, as well as any companies that we want to do the search for us. So with that, I'm going to say I'd like to make a motion to deny this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Regent Boylan. And so the motion that you're making is a motion to deny the deviation of processes that are defined in the Board of Regents policy specific to the Nevada State University presidential search?
Yes, sir. In simple words, thank you so much.
Is there a second to the motion to deny?
Second.
Mr. Chair, a point of order. This is Regent Goycochea. I believe that this agenda item is set and it requires the 2/3 to either approve or not approve. I don't know if, again, I don't know if it's appropriate, and I'll defer to council that we have another motion on the table.
Thank you, Regent Goycochea. Yeah, I understand the
This
motion.
is Regent Del Carlo. I have something to say too.
Yeah,
If a
sure.
motion is not
Chair-
made,
Chair Brooks,
as it is in our,
If we could, if
the
we,
motion dies.
if we could
I mean,
address,
the thing dies. No
this-
motion's made.
Chair Brooks, it's Chris Nielsen, your special counsel. This is correct, this is a little bit of an unusual agenda item, given the 2/3 requirement. I think in theory that you could go about the motion in two ways. I think in theory you could do, as Regent Boylan proposed, the motion to deny. But probably the cleanest way, given the 2/3 majority, would be to entertain a motion to approve and get a second, and then if, then we'll count the 9 votes at that point. So I think that would probably be the cleanest way, but in theory, I think you can do it either way.
I appreciate that, Council. To me, that would make the most sense as we move forward with the motion based on the way the agenda item is written. So I'll go back to Regent Boylan and ask if he'd like to rephrase or withdraw his motion.
Chair, I will withdraw my, I was going to say emotion, but my motion, because I do trust our lawyers. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I just want to make sure that all regents have been heard. So even before I ask for a motion, which I know allows for a discussion after the motion, are there other regents who would like to participate in this conversation?
I think you need to withdraw the second. There was a second.
You know, I didn't, thank you. I appreciate that. I think there was so much going on, I didn't hear the second, so I appreciate the clarification. Regent Arascata, are you inclined to withdraw your second to the motion that Regent Boylan made?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And once again, we have a clean slate to move forward with. And so again, I'll ask if there's any regents who wanted to add comments or questions to this conversation. Regent Batista?
Regent Batista, for the record, how long would it actually take to change code then, if that's kind of what the issue seems to be?
Yeah, that's a great question. So typically, code comes before the board twice, but I'll defer over to Council Martinez to dive into the code policy revisions requirements.
Martinez, for the record, this would be a code change that could come up in new business. Because this is a revision to Title II, Chapter 1, what our offices would do is we would propose a change. We would have to go through the shared governance process, which in the code requires, we normally do 2 readings at 2 separate board meetings, but the code actually requires 30 days notice to stakeholders. So realistically, if we were going to draft something in the next, say, 30 days, route it for 30 days, and then bring it to the board for final action. So I would say guesstimation 2 to 3 months.
Regent Breger, you had another
I do.
comment?
Susan Breger for the record. So this is to legal. When we look at this and deviating from our process, is there any other options versus from just deviating from this? I know we've heard we have a contract, which we do. We have a process that's already started for a search that has been 3 or 4 meetings, I believe, if that's correct. That's our, yeah. Yeah, it's already had a number of meetings. And so this is not about the acting president. I admire her. I've known her in my school board days. So it's not about that. It's about, to me still, and I've listened to everybody and I respect what everyone says, it's still the message of precedent setting. And the message, it's like I said, it's a small university system out there when people run for president. I would have preferred that she had been interim and just been given the position after a year or something. This just is a different message to me. So is there anything that legal sees that we could do to do this without having to make this deviation from our own crazy book that we should throw away?
Jimmy Martinez for the record. Because the code prohibits an acting president from applying, and that section of the code also says you can only deviate from the code with a 2/3 vote. That's what requires the 2/3 vote to do anything different. The only other option, as we already heard, is to amend the code for.
That's a 3-month process, though, because of how we work. And so there's nothing in regards to her contract that could be done. We're not going to suspend a search. I would take that the search is not going to be suspended, because even being in 28 years of elected service, what I'm hearing is that possibly if it were to get a supermajority vote, then I think she would get a supermajority vote to be the president of that system, even if there's other candidates. That's how I feel sitting here, knowing what are people thinking outside of us. So I think it's very difficult and unfortunate. I respect everybody's vote, and I guess we'll have to see where it goes since we have no other options. I just wanted to make sure there was not one other option to just continue on, suspend a search, change a contract, other than a code change, which should have probably never been there in the first place. So thank you for your lawyer advice.
Thank you, Regent Breger. Vice Chair Goodman?
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to say that I respect everyone's opinion regarding the code. I can definitely see where everyone's coming from. At the same time, leadership is difficult to find, and it's not something you can teach. It's not something that's learned. I think it's something that you either have it or you don't. And so for me, that is the reason I was willing to make a step away from the code and allow Amber to apply. But I do understand what everyone's saying, and I am a rule follower at heart, and we're setting a precedent. I understand that as well. But like I said, she has done some incredible things, things that I've been very impressed with, and the kind of decisions you've made have been smart, and you've done it well, and you've brought in, if you didn't know everything about something, you've brought in someone who did. And so I just wanted you to have an opportunity as well. So I just wanted to put that on the record.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I think our regents have had an opportunity to weigh in on this one, and there's only a couple of things that I would add to the conversation, and there's been great points that have been made by all regents. And certainly when we take a look at where we are in terms of the search itself, I think there are things that could be done to protect the integrity and fairness of the presidential search. An acting president who occupies the office also controls institutional messages and often makes personal and budget decisions during that acting period. And even if unintentional, it creates visibility and influence that external candidates can't match. Another consideration is preventing conflicts of interest during this process of decision-making and, doing things in a matter where nothing can be distorted. And so it's possible that it creates governance distortion where the acting term becomes a de facto probationary candidate, which undermines the clean separation between acting leadership and permanent appointment. And so by maintaining ineligibility, the board ensures that the acting president's sole charge is stewardship to stabilize the operations and prepare the institution for a successful national search. From a policy standpoint, retaining the current language is consistent with strong system governance and sound presidential search practices. And with that, we'll move to Regent Breger.
Okay. I'm going to really make a crazy statement here, but I'm going to ask this because I feel like I'm just not in a comfortable position. Could the acting resign from a position, go to a position in the system, and then apply to be president? That would be her choice, but I'm just going to ask it because I don't like the position that I'm sitting in because I have such respect, but I also respect our rules, and I'm a rule follower, have been all these years, and so I just want to ask that.
Jimmy Martinez for the record. In theory, you could never prevent anybody from resigning from their position. That would then create a vacancy in the office of the president, in which you would have to go through the policy again.
Well, it's just a thought.
Regent Brown.
I'd like to make a motion to table agenda item number 2.
Motion has been made by Regent Brown to table this item. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Chair Brooks, just for clarification purposes, is the motion to table for within this meeting, or is it a motion to postpone to a future date?
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to postpone to a future date.
So we have a motion to postpone this agenda item for a future date, which will be determined later. It was seconded by Vice Chair Goodman. Is there any discussion that needs to be had based on this motion? If not, I'll ask our Chief of Staff, Carrie.
I have a question.
Regent Downs.
Thank you, Chair Brooks. So what does it mean? What is so obviously a yes vote would mean we're going to table this to some future agenda. And what would a no vote mean on this? So if this got a majority no, does that mean this dies here, or is this then come up possibly for a vote to change or to circumvent the current code?
Thank you, Regent Downs. It would mean that we would not table this, and we would then possibly have a motion to approve the agenda item as it's written. And so unless there's any other questions in terms of process, I'll ask for a roll call vote. In the motion that was made by Regent Brown to table this discussion for a future date, seconded by Vice Chair Goodman.
Regent Fernandez.
Chair Brooks.
Aye.
I think we have to continue with the vote.
Yeah, we're already in the vote, Regent Boylan, I apologize.
Regent
Well,
Goicoechea.
I think I had my hand up before the vote counting started, so.
Regent
But I'll
Goicoechea.
let it go, whatever you say, so. Go ahead.
Thank you, Regent Boylan. Regent Goicoechea.
Aye.
Vice Chair Goodman.
Yes.
Regent McGrath.
Yes.
Regent Ariscata.
No.
Regent Batista.
Yes.
Regent Boylan.
Nay.
Regent Breger.
Yes.
Chair Brooks.
No.
Regent Brown.
Yes.
Regent Carvalho.
Yes.
Regent Del Carlo.
Yes, sorry, I had to unmute.
Regent Downs.
No.
Motion passes.
And with that, we will move on to our next agenda item. Although I do have a question that is specific to process that I'll defer to council. Just so that we're aware of how this then moves forward, and I'm still speaking about agenda item number 2. With the vote to approve for table for further discussion, how does that weigh in with the current processes that are happening with the presidential search?
Jimmy Martinez for the record. So the vote today was to postpone it to an undefined date. So currently it's postponed. The search proceeds And if and until the item comes back before the board, everything remains the same.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarification. And we'll move on to agenda item number 3. This is bylaws of the Board of Regents and Procedurals and Guideline Manual revision, specific to the annual evaluation of the Chancellor. Again, this is an agenda item that has come before us at the request of 3 regents, Vice Chair Goodman, Regent Breger, and Regent McGrath. So I will turn this over to Vice Chair Goodman.
Thank you, Chair Brooks. The impetus behind this agenda item is, as we all know, there are a lot of portions of our policy that I think need some real attention, and this is one of them. To be honest, I'm surprised that we were able to get a chancellor to move here and move his family, knowing that it's kind of a review process of one individual. No matter who the individual is, the 3 of us feel that a jury of 1 is never a good idea. And so the board ultimately has the responsibility of course, any kind of disciplinary action to our chancellor. At the same time, I think if there is a difference in opinion on performance, I think that both the chair and the vice chair should be able to submit their reviews to the board and let the board make their own decision. I think that the more people involved, the better. And that is the reason we put this forward, is so that if someone does, even right now and for future hires, this is something where an individual is not stuck with a review process by someone that they don't even know, or someone that may have different views. So I just thought it would be important to start working on some of these policies that clearly need some adjustment. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Goodman. Regent Breger?
Thank you. Susan Breger for the record. I normally don't speak about past experiences too much because I think we're here now and this is what we should be working on. But in regards to that, in any other position that I've held, there was a quasi-personnel discussion, and we would each person, whichever position you were in, whether county commissioner or school board, would share great things that have happened in a year and things they would like to see different. Other than that, it was a smooth process. That's when we would discuss any salary differences or any other accommodations that would want to be done. And so to me, I think this is more equitable than what's ever been done in the past for that very reason. We're all 13 people work with and together with the chancellor. And I think those opinions need to be addressed in an open meeting on the good and the different and how we want to improve the system. So that's why I feel like this is a good thing to do.
Thank you, Regent Breger. Regent McGrath?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to echo what my colleagues have said. I think it's important that there's more than one voice, and I think that is what often happens in the private sector, and I think it's appropriate for us here. It's important that thoughts and feedback and suggestions come from both of the leadership positions within the board, and that's why I would urge my fellow members to support this. Thanks.
Thank you, Regent McGrath. Are there any regents who would like to make comment, or Regent Downs?
Yes, sir.
Regent Borland?
Oh, no, Downs, go ahead. I'll go after him, so thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Regent Boylan. So I just have first a question to, counsel to the board or general counsel. If this is changing code, then doesn't this require the 2 visits, like one to review it, one to pass it, or is there something different procedurally about this one? And then if we made a general change to our code to allow for the acting situation, we talked about that taking multiple visits. I'm curious about that. And second, as having been a vice chair, I really appreciated when Regent Carvalho was chair and how she did the evaluation of the chancellors. or Chancellor, I thought she did a great job, and it's something that I'm glad I didn't have to do. I respect that Vice Chair Goodman wants to take that on, but I don't see the need to do that. I'd ask, do we want to add a third person for a tiebreaker? I mean, how far down do we want to take this? So there's my question.
Chair Brooks, Chris Nielsen, your special counsel, and Jimmy, correct me if I'm wrong, but Regent Downs, this is a proposed change to your bylaws, which is Title I, not Title II, and therefore the 30-day requirement that Mr. Martinez referenced in the previous agenda item is not applicable. And then you also referenced adding 2 or 3, and again, I just want to caution that we're navigating some very, very nuanced open meeting law issues when it comes to some subcommittees, et cetera. And so I think this is, as presented, at least in my mind, this is about as far as we could go with respect to the changing the annual evaluation process. Now, the periodic evaluation is a slightly different process, a more robust process. But just so everybody's aware, for today's purposes, agenda item 3 is to tweak your bylaws to allow for, if there's disagreement, for the vice chair to weigh in the annual evaluation process.
And Jimmy Martinez, for the record, the only thing I would add is that since it is a bylaws revision, it requires a 2/3 vote. There's also a proposed revision in the procedures and guidelines manual, which does not require a 2/3 vote generally, but because it needs to remain consistent with the bylaws, you would first have to amend the bylaws, then that can take place. So it's going to, either one requires a 2/3 vote in this instance. Or more accurately, the bylaws requires a 2/3 vote, but they can happen in one vote.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you both.
Yeah. Regent Boylan?
Thank you, Chair. I agree with Regent Goodman, the more the merrier. But I think it was just before Regent Goodman was elected to the board that we changed the fact that it would be just the chair who would be doing the evaluation. And I was the one who pushed for it. And then we decided it would be the chair and the vice chair together. So I'm not sure why we need to have the vice chair give a separate report now and the chair give a separate report, because we already had that. Correct me if I'm wrong, Consigliere Jimmy, because you were here. And I pushed for that because, like her, I believe we need, more eyes on it and more people to say something. So where do we sit with that, Jimmy? I mean, Council Martinez, sir?
Jimmy Martinez, for the record, I'm not sure I entirely understand the question. Are you asking about the way the bylaws may have previously been written?
No, maybe I should speak Italian with you, but no. I remember that we had decided that the Chancellor's report, and that was supposed to be a joke, Jimmy, but yeah, the Chancellor's report evaluation would be done by both the chair and the vice chair, and it would be brought to the board. So I don't see where anyone can now say that it's only the chair that will be doing the evaluation. Am I right or wrong? This is something we did a few years back. So we didn't ask for a separate from the chair and a separate evaluation from the vice chair. It was both of them as a team bringing it to us. Do you remember that, sir? Does anyone on the board remember that?
Jimmy Martinez, for the record. I don't recall those conversations, but if you look at the current bylaws in the backup, the current bylaws state that the chair does the evaluation, the annual evaluation. The periodic evaluation is much different. It's a much more robust process requiring an evaluation committee. But as it currently sits, the annual evaluation is done by the chair. And there's opportunity for input. If you refer to the procedures and guidelines manual that set forth the process that has to be followed in the evaluation, that's where it talks about what the review will be based upon. And that's the self-evaluation of the chancellor input from the regents and senior system staff, as well as extensive conversations between the board chair and the chancellor. So that's where you would look to see what the actual process looks like and what's considered. I hope that's helpful.
Thank you. No, it is. And that's exactly what Council Christensen said there. That makes more sense to me now. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Chair. That's all from me.
Thank you, Regent Boylan. Vice Chair Goodman, I know you wanted to add another comment.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to address one of the questions of my colleague, Regent Downs. I simply, the way this reads is if there is a disagreement in performance, then both of the evaluations move forward. I am not running to do the evaluation myself, but I do think that if the chair and the vice chair disagree in the performance, that each should be able to write a review and let the board come to their own decision about the chancellor's performance. So thank you.
Thank you.
Regent Carvalho.
Thank you. I have written comments again for this item. The periodic evaluation process does allow for a committee to conduct the evaluation, so I did want to make that point. And that is a newer policy that was written a few years ago. So I believe, Regent Boylan, when you were asking about the input of other regents, I think that was for the periodic evaluation process. And I'll also say that during the time that I did an evaluation of our chancellor, I did receive input from regents. We made sure that was done in a way that met open meeting law. I also was very aware that this was coming before the board, and that it was a public activity. And I'll say that I've heard from former presidents and chancellors of our system that the evaluation process, both the annual and periodic, are very stressful for them, to the point that some of them have said that they were not interested in continuing with our system if we had this type of process. Unfortunately, open meeting law says that we have to do it this way. We're unique in that, and perhaps we can advocate for a change to that at some point. I would love to be able to do that, but this is what we've got right now. So I don't think that allowing the vice chair to provide a second evaluation would be a good best practice for board leadership or for giving our chancellor direction on where they should go in the future. And I'm not sure if this also will then extend to our presidents at some point as a policy revision. I hope not. But I think it risks shifting the evaluation process from a board-centered review to a potentially fragmented officer-level process. The chancellor's accountability should remain to the entire board as an acting body through the board chair and not to competing perspectives from two individual regents. As a reminder, we all get one vote to approve or not the report that comes forward. Creating a formal mechanism for dueling written evaluations introduces the possibility of publicly conflicting narratives, perceived factional divisions within the board, and confusion of executive performance reviews. The annual evaluation should be a disciplined governance function focused on performance metrics, strategic priorities, and leadership effectiveness. And I suspect it feels more like this has become an arena for officer disagreement to be memorialized in competing documents, which I don't think is the direction that the board should go in. If two separate written evaluations are issued, the chancellor may receive conflicting directives or mixed signals regarding our priorities, and this weakens clarity of expectations and can ultimately complicate his leadership. The briefing paper acknowledges potential delays, introducing a formal disagreement pathway, and it could add procedural complexity, extending timelines, and may increase administrative burden, which I would agree with. The annual evaluation is designed to be structured in this timely, compliant way, and so I fear that this could be an issue with this, although I know that's pure speculation at this point. I just feel strongly that effective leadership involves engaged effort, and we do that through our board chair with the guidance of the vice chair, and I think we have a current policy that does that. If that is not the case, and I think there are other discussions to be had, perhaps among leadership, I don't know, but I don't think that trying to change this policy at this time is the right way to deal with perhaps a specific instance and issue that we're experiencing currently. And I feel very strongly that competing evaluations are you know, I would say leadership and management 101 would say that you have one evaluation, and this goes against what I know to be effective management in this case. Thank you.
Regent Breger.
Susan Breger for the record. Once again, I really respect everybody's opinions. I have never been comfortable, other than I do appreciate when Regent, when you, Amy and I just went blank completely, but you did ask for everyone's opinions, which is legal to the best of my ability to be able to give how we feel about the chancellor. There's 13 of us, and I firmly, at this point in going into my 4th year, have decided, I've been kind of quiet in the past, I'm not doing it anymore because those years went very quickly and I want to see some change. But I was, that's probably Carol. But I do feel that it should be a policy that is not one person, and I don't care who the person is. It could be anybody on this board. It's not about current or past leadership, but I think we're all leaders, number one, so I've never liked that word. And I think that we should look at this very seriously, and hopefully there's the vote for it. I don't think it's unusual, and otherwise I'd want it to be in a meeting where you're saying, everybody could diagnose each one of us of our good qualities and those they'd like to see different. I don't think that's a negative. I think critiquing is important and grows the system to be better and better. And this system in the past has been a little stagnant. So I think there's some good things coming forward, and I'd like to see this pass, or if it's not going to and ends up, then maybe a different motion or a different thing how we go there. But I am not for one person making a decision about another person. And I want that to be very clear. I think it's 13 of us work with this chancellor and any chancellor, and I don't care who's chair of the board. It's not about that person. It's about the one individual opinion being formulated. Thank you.
Regent McGrath.
Get it to work. Thank you, Chair. I just want to echo what Regent Breger said, and also I do hear former Chair Carvalho, and I understand her viewpoint, but we would hope that when 2 evaluations are necessary would be an extreme situation. And I think it's really important for the chair and vice chair to work together cooperatively as a first step. And I think that we would hope, I think every member of the board would hope that that would occur. So I think that the instances in which there would be 2 different evaluations ultimately really hopefully would be few and far between, as opposed to that process being cooperative and one of feedback and discussion. So I think that in that instance, it would be useful, if there is such a disagreement, to have those 2 evaluations and to have those 2 voices so that others can make their own evaluations based on those two viewpoints. So I think under normal circumstances, that shouldn't occur because it should be a cooperative process, and I think we would all hope for that. And that's why I supported bringing this forward.
Thank you. Vice Chair Goodman?
Thank you, Chair. I think it's important to acknowledge the fact that what we're trying to do here is create policy that is enduring. You mentioned Management 101, Regent Carvalho. I think that sometimes you don't know who's going to be the chair. And and this is by no reflection here. What I'm trying to say is, if we want this board to stop having the reputation of being dysfunctional, we need to implement policy that actually works and endures beyond the 13 people that are here right now. I think it's important to, just from a personnel standpoint, I've had a business for 20 years. I've run a nonprofit for 7. From that standpoint, from a business perspective, I think it's very important to have more than one person doing this kind of evaluation, especially when that person is unknown. This is nuts to move your family and take a job and you don't know who's going to give your evaluation. And this is only the annual evaluation, by the way, and this is only if there is any kind of dispute in performance. And by the way, it goes in a personnel file. It's just about the principle. Do I want something negative in my personnel file without anything counteracting it? No. So I just think that if there is a disagreement, that there should be two performance evaluations submitted to the board, and ultimately this all falls within the board. I just think that if there are two different opinions, that those two different opinions should be reflected. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Goodman. I think it's probably appropriate just to point out a couple things, right? It's clear that this policy discussion or policy change seems very specific to where we currently sit and not something that is broad-based from perhaps previous experiences that the board has endured with evaluations, whether they're president evaluations or chancellor evaluations. And the way that the current policy sits is that an evaluation is done with the input of all regents. There is no one left out of the process specific to the board. And it becomes more of almost this executive or administrative process to put an evaluation together based on feedback from board members, presidents, executive staff members. And then we get the opportunity for the chancellor to provide self-evaluation. And then the full board gets together and there's in an open meeting, because that's the way the policy is. These things are not done behind closed doors. And there is a conversation that takes place based on the evaluation and perceptions that folks have specific to how things are moving out of the system office. And so that's a pretty balanced approach, I think. And it's inclusive for all regents to be a part of. So no one is left out. The concern is that when you have two very formal evaluations, it certainly would demonstrate whether it's unintentional or not, a clear division in leadership. And then there's, competing authority structures in terms of what does this look like when two evaluations are being submitted, and what types of lines are being blurred based on responsibility, the way that our policy sits with the chair essentially takes lead to administratively move through an evaluation process. And then if reports differ, which document would represent the official, board assessment? Which one governs performance expectations for the upcoming year? So I think the board functions through structured consultation where we're all working together and everyone has input in this process rather than parallel executive authority. And I think I will open this back up for any additional conversations, or I'll ask for a motion. Vice Chair Goodman.
Mayor Brooks.
Regent Gokachia.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize for not getting my hand up, but I can't find that button. So anyway, I appreciate where we are in this, and I think it goes right back to the handbook and the policies. And again, I'll defer to council. Technically, you can have a 3-member committee and not violate the open meeting law.
Jimmy Martinez for the record. Yeah, there would be no reason the board could not have a committee for the annual evaluation, but there's also the evaluation committee and the periodic. So the intent of separating them is to have a more expedited evaluation process for the annual and then a more robust committee-driven process for the periodic. That's just the way it currently sits.
Yeah, well, and I guess that's the point I'm trying to make. In a perfect world, I believe that it should be 3 members, on this. I don't know why we want to put our chairman number 1 in the position and then also create the scenario where you've got maybe the chairman and the vice chair at loggerheads. And so sometimes that third person, that third wheel is really what you need. And again, I'm looking at this more than on this particular today's scenario and a majority vote. Again, I think we need to look at this as regents and look at the handbook and how this is created. But in a perfect world, I think it makes sense with a 13-member board. You would have three members, 3 appointed, and again, whether it was the chair, vice chair, and the chair of the audit, or we could figure out what the hierarchy was. But clearly, I think 3 members make the most sense. I don't know why anyone would want to get themselves in a position where they were bringing it all down on them, or you ended up, the chair and the vice chair maybe at odds over an evaluation. And then that said, a written evaluation, I don't care whether it's annual and who it's done by, once it goes in the file, it can be critical. So again, I'm looking down the road for not necessarily who writes the annual evaluation for Chancellor McNair right now, but in a perfect world, I think it makes sense to have 3 members on any type of an evaluation. And I defer to Chairwoman Carvalho, former Chair Carvalho. It sounds like maybe you reached out to all the members, and that's great. So when you did your evaluation, so that's great. But I'm just newbie enough. I'm looking for a perfect world. Thank you.
Chair Brooks, if I may just add to that with your permission. Regent Gokachia and the board, again, this is, as I mentioned earlier, we're dealing with some nuanced but very real open meeting law issues. And so whenever we put a committee together, a subcommittee together, whether it's an evaluation committee, whether it's a search committee, whenever there's 2 or more involved, it's deemed a subcommittee under NRS 241.015. And those meetings then have to be publicly noticed because the subcommittee at that point equals a public body, like a separate public body. And I had conversations with the Attorney General's office, the chief counsel who has the sole authority to enforce that issue. And so I just want to make it clear that the proposal that's before you today in Agenda 3 respects the existing open meeting law, but allows for participation by the vice chair if there's disagreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. And I think perhaps something that could be cleared is that it's within policy that whoever the chair is speaks to all the regents. And so it wasn't, as much as I appreciate former Chair Carvalho's interaction with regents during the time where she was conducting an evaluation for a previous chancellor, that's really the way that it goes. It's that's how an evaluation process works based on our policy. Regent Breger?
Thank you, Susan Breger, for the record. I appreciate your comments, and I think where we need to go with this is build a good relationship with the legislature. They have no open meeting law, so what they share, they get to do whatever they want, but yet they impose very tight restrictions on us trying to do legal, good, solid work. And I think if we build that relationship, maybe in whatever year it is, 27, we could go to them and say on just these certain things, the chancellor search, presidential searches, important items like this, that where our hands are not tied, 3 out of 13 is not a quorum. I don't care what they say and what statutes they have. That is not accurate. I know how to count, and I know what you're saying, and I know the legalities of it, but I think that they have to look at not tying the hands of a body other than themselves, or they should be under the same rules that we are, and they should have open meeting. But they tried to get it last legislative session. Of course, they voted against it. So that's how I feel.
Thank you, Regent Breger. Is there any other comments? Vice Chair Goodman?
For the record,
to,
go ahead, Regent Del Carlo. So,
I texted the chair, so maybe you didn't see your text, Chair Brooks.
I did not.
I thought that's what we were supposed to do when we're remote, so I apologize
Thank
if
you.
I'm not following the proper process.
No, you are. I appreciate
just
that.
wanted,
Go ahead.
This has been a very, very good discussion. It truly has been. And there's been a lot of really great points made, but I would say over my 9 years, Regents have definitely been left out of this process. And I would even say that I don't know right now what our chair is even evaluating our chancellor on, because that has not been shared. We've never, as a body, even given him goal. I guess just maybe the chair gives him the goals, but that I don't know what his goals are. And I would say back over those 9 years, it depends on the chair if they want to open it up to other regents and ask. I've had people that have asked. I've had chairs that haven't asked. But I totally agree. I like this idea of the 3 with Regent Gogachia was saying. Our process is really, really awful. And we lost a good president over our process for the presidents. I know we're talking chancellor, but sometimes we're all human beings, and a chair and a vice chair, and I'm not just saying for right now, they don't get along. It's just they have a difference of opinion. And when just one person has complete authority to write that evaluation and say the number 2 person that we vote for doesn't even get a say, I think it's important that they do get a say. And I like that. I think that's really good. And it does go in the personnel file, and nobody wants negative stuff in their personnel file. And yes, people move a long ways and pay their own ways to come here and uproot their families. So I just think at the end of the day, in new business, I'm going to, hope somebody, if they don't ask, I'm going to do it needs to have a complete review. But I am very supportive of this, and I think we should, I know we have to go super majority on this. I hope we have it, because so many things need changing in our policies. And I'm with you, Susan. I think we should throw the book out and start over. Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Del Carlo. Vice Chair Goodman?
thank you, Chair. For the record, I did try to have it be the chair, the vice chair, and the audit chairman, and I was advised by legal that it was better for there just to be 2 reviews that were distributed to the board and also inserted into the personnel file. So just, for me, I think the more people involved, the better. So I just wanted to put that on the record for Regent Gokachia. And with that, I would like to make a motion to approve item number 3, please.
Thank you, Vice Chair Goodman. So there's a motion by Vice Chair Goodman for agenda item number 3, which is the approval of bylaws of the Board of Regents and Procedures and Guidelines Manual for revisions for the annual evaluation of the Chancellor. Is there a second?
Second, Regent McGrath.
Thank you, Regent McGrath. So we have a motion on the floor that has been seconded by Regent McGrath. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask our Chief of Staff, Karen Nikolajewski, to please conduct a roll call vote.
Regent Goycochea.
Yes.
Vice Chair Goodman,
Yes.
Regent McGrath,
Yes.
Regent Ariscata,
No.
Regent Batista,
Yes.
Regent Boylan,
Nay.
Regent Brager,
Yes.
Chair Brooks,
No.
Regent Brown,
Yes.
Regent Carvalho,
No.
Regent Del Carlo,
Yes.
Regent Downs,
No.
Regent Fernandez.
No.
The motion fails.
Thank you. And with that, I think we'll just take a 5-minute administrative break. Thank you. Thank you. We'll move to agenda item number 4, which is student access funds. This was a new business item that has come up several times, and so we'll be hearing it today. And I will turn this over to CFO Chris Vitone. Or, yeah, I assumed that I was turning it over to you because it has to do with the numbers.
Thank you, Chair Brooks. So the materials provided for you, I think, was just a very brief briefing paper, understanding that the board wanted to discuss the access policies. I think we provided in the materials both the policy where the fee set aside rules are, but also the policy on the use of the access fees that explains the criteria and the thresholds related to need-based and non-need-based uses. Also provided the section of the policy related to the differential fees, because I know at your meeting on the fee discussions, that was a question there on the fee portion that's set aside from the differential fees as well. And then the last portion of the materials provided was the information the campuses had provided for your discussion related to how they administer those funds. Again, I think there's been, through your conversation, several different instances of interest in how the campuses administer, and I'm still not certain that we've gotten to the level of detail you're interested there, but wanted to just re-provide that information that was shared in January, and hope that information will help with your discussion today.
Thank you. For some reason, I had envisioned one of your PowerPoint presentations that would keep us in awe as you move through the numbers, where we are at the edge of our seat waiting for the next slide. I see that is not happening today.
Sorry to disappoint.
All right. Are there any regents that have questions that are specific to access funds? Regent Downs?
Thank you, Chair Brooks, and thank you to CFO Vitone for putting this together. So in looking at the access funds, I'm trying to find the line where it mentions it, but it does say that at least 80, no, I'm not, use of student access funds, I guess B2, it says at least 80% of the state-funded student access funds for each institution will go to need-based programs. So at least 80%, that means it could be up to 20% go elsewhere. So, and that becomes, I think in part 3 where it mentions it, other access-oriented financial assistance. I'm curious how much of this goes to athletics for scholarships, or does any of it do that?
Chris Vitone, for the record, I don't know if perhaps that might be a question best answered at the campus level.
Okay, thank you. I mean, do we have any presence here who can answer that question?
Thank you, President Hevey.
Chris Hevey, interim president of UNLV. Yes, we do have a set aside in our access funds. I believe the number is $800,000 per year is used to support student athletes. And it would be detailed, I believe, in the March athletics report. That figure would be listed. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, this is Brian Sandoval.
Yes, President Sandoval.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Brian Sandoval, President of the University of Nevada in Reno, and to you and through you to Regent Downs. The answer to the question is, at least at our university, we don't use any of the access funds for student athletes. Thank you.
This is President Alexander at Truckee Meadows Community College. I can verify that TMCC does not use any of the access fee funds for athletics. Per code, generally these funds are set aside for student support and for the sorts of activities that are board approved in the space of student support services. Thank you.
Thank you, President Alexander. President Klippenstein?
Yes, Chair Brooks, Regent Downs, I would like to echo exactly what President Alexander just said. At CSM, we do not offer any of the access fees that goes to our student athletes, and they do go to various different type of programs to help out with the retention and other services.
Thank you, President. President Lassiter?
Thank you, Chair Brooks. Acting President Lopez Lassiter, for the record, similar to my colleagues, Nevada State University also does not have any set aside for athletics.
Thank you. President Hebe?
Chris Hebe, Interim President of UNLV. I'm told that I was incorrect in what I said. So no, we don't use access either.
Thank you, President Hebe. I just gave you a quick promotion in calling you president.
I want to be president, thanks.
Regent Breger.
It's hard enough being this, no. So my question would be, are those funds identified? So if we're doing an audit of the campus, I'm really into this audit stuff right now. Would we be able to identify where the access funds are going and where the 20% is going? And I believe presidents should have discretion. And I hope our neediest that don't have scholarships are having the help that they need, but that's the question.
Chris Fatone, for the record. I think I would say yes, they are identified. All of the access funds are managed in accounts that specifically ensures that they are identifiable as access funds. They're also managed through the college financial aid offices, and the awards are made to students through the financial aid office. So they're all trackable.
Okay. And the follow-up question is there, I've learned this a lot through the years, is there a specific question, like when I'm going to be asking for some unique audits next week. Is there a specific question that I would have to ask our auditor or whoever at every campus to get that information? Because if I don't ask the right question, I don't get the right answer. And sometimes my question might be interpreted differently. So later on, I want you to give me the question, not now, what I should ask so I can get different things that should be given, but I don't get, or anybody. I hope I'm saying that right. So I know sometimes the question needs to be more exact or they ignore it. I don't mean that rude, but it's true. Thanks. Well, we can discuss that later.
Regent Arascata.
Thank you, Chair Brooks. So on the reference papers under the use of differential program fees, it states that at least 15% of the differential fees at the universities and state colleges and 10% of the differential fees at the community colleges must be allocated for needs-based financial aid students of enrollment. Do we have a number of how many students utilize this percentage? And if the fees are not being fully utilized, is there a rollover amount to the next year, or what happens with that leftover differential fee money? CFO Fatone.
Chris Fatone, for the record. Let me answer the last question first. To the extent that the funds aren't fully utilized in any period, yes, they will roll forward And those fees are captured in the fee balance report that are part of your annual reporting there. And I apologize because I would like to ask if you could repeat the first part of your question for me.
Not a problem at all. Do we have the number of students on the campuses utilizing this wonderful differential fee programs for the needs-based financial aid students so they can enroll in and receive their college in their 2 years and 4-year degrees? We have the number on each campus of how many students utilize this option.
I don't have those numbers today, but certainly the campuses would be able to provide the number of students that are receiving awards under any of the access programs.
Thank you.
Regent McGrath.
I don't know if we're prepared to do this today, so I may bring this up as new business at a future meeting. What I think would be helpful would be to see some modeling, and I don't know how we go about doing that, but what I would love to see is some modeling of whether the non-needs-based amounts were not being taken out of student fees. What would the result be if the needs-based were in fact also not being charged to the student population as a whole? What type of a deficit would result to students who have need? So I think that may be very complicated, and I want to try to get some thoughts and formulate how we could do that. But my opinion is that we need some of that modeling to understand whether the economics of this are helping, hurting, who is being helped, and who potentially may be hurt by various aspects of this. So I think it's something we still do need to explore.
Regent Carvalho.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Regent McGrath, you teed me up perfectly on what you just said in your comments. I've looked at the report, the financial aid report several times, and one thing that has struck me is we do have in the, I think it's in the appendix, and I'm looking at the most recent report that is on the NSHE data dashboard, and I don't expect anybody to go there right now, but I think this is good for future discussion on this. It has struck me that on page 25 of the 23-24 NSHE financial aid report, that we have a page that has a lot of the financial information. So it's not necessarily based on students, but dollar figures. And it's interesting to me that our need-based amount of financial aid is almost 41% of our total, and non-need is almost 60%. So that, I think, lends to the conversation that we had, we started, I think, in December. We talked about it in January, regarding the fact that I think we like to sit in this area of, high financial aid to accompany higher tuition and fees. And that's an acceptable pricing philosophy. But then when we have higher non-need-based aid, that makes me question if our access and financial aid funds are going to the right students. So I think that Regent McGrath, I think that lends to some of the questions that you had. So I worry if, and please, CFO Vitone, if I'm comparing apples to oranges in this situation, then please let me know. But with this conversation, I do think it's interesting that at least from this financial aid report, it appears that we have higher non-need-based financial aid for our students. Thank you.
Thank you. President Heavey was just, because I can't see behind me, and these are hard to see when someone has their hand up. He alerted me that someone does have their hand up, and it's both President Sandoval and President Alexander. And we'll hear from President Alexander and then go right to President Sandoval. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Brooks. I do have some information about the way that TMCC disperses these funds that could be helpful for the discussion. First of all, citing code here, which reads, 100% of student access funds will be used for financial assistance for students. Except for the Regents service program, funds will not be used for administrative or any other purposes unless specifically authorized by board policy. Here at TMCC, we do not have any programs presently authorized for any alternate uses under the heading Regents Service Program. So we use these funds solely for student support, and it comes in the following categories. This fiscal year, we are projecting to award $2 million in aid to TMCC needs grants, TMCC incentive grants, TMCC work study, and TMCC non-need grants. And I can elaborate on all four. TMCC need grants provides funding for low-income and middle-income students, including those who are Pell eligible. TMCC incentive grants provides funding for students who are part of the Graduate Ready Survey cohort, the GRS cohort. These funds award Pell eligible students and students who are not eligible for Pell. Third, TMCC work study, of course, provides funding for our work study students in the federal work study program. And TMCC non-need grants provides funding for students who are not eligible for Pell. So students of all sorts are supported by this fund, and that I hope will facilitate further discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. President Sandoval.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Brian Sandoval, President of the University of Nevada in Reno, and to you three, to Regent Arascata, to be, I won't say I'm being 100% precise, but it's approximately 5,000 students on our campus that are the beneficiaries of the need-based scholarships that come through these access funds. And then for the carryover, we have approximately 1.3 million in need and 144,000 in non-need. And I'm going to piggyback from President Alexander. We also religiously and strictly comply with your current code when it comes to the access funds. And so we deploy them consistent with what's required in your code. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, President Sandoval. And I recognize that one of our folks from the system office in Reno has a hand up. Our Vice Chancellor, is that Renee?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Associate Vice Chancellor for Academic and Student Affairs, Renee Davis. And I would just like to take a minute to address the question that Regent Carvalho brought up regarding page 25 in the most recent financial aid report, which is Appendix A. I would note that that is an overall percentage based on all the aid that students receive, including student employment, student loans. And so if you look at those figures, there are some really big figures, for example, in the student employment line where 62 million out of 65 are non-need, which most student employment is non-need based with the exception of need-based work study. So that is one of the things that skews that along with the student loan, because students can take a need-based and a non-need-based federal loan. So that might not be the best figure to look at in terms of the access aid. I will note also that we do, in our annual collection of data from the financial aid offices, we're able to parse out the exact percentages for the access aid, so we can at least provide that at the high level back to the board.
Thank you. Regent McGrath.
Thank you, Chair. I think that it would be difficult, very likely, to parse this out at this meeting, but I would also be curious to have a better understanding of how decisions are made for non-need awards. Are those things, and I'm sure it varies based upon the nature of the award, but are they things that students proactively apply for, and who actually makes the decisions about where those funds are received?
Thank you. So it sounds like there's potentially several new business items that can come up towards the end of our meeting today. I am interested in exploring just a couple of things that have to do with student fee access, because I think there's barriers for some students that are, beyond what does it cost to register, or what is my tuition going to look like. There's also food and housing insecurities. There's academic support needs, there's technology access needs, and retention services. And so what I'm interested in understanding based on needs that we recognize that students do have, and that the current 10 to 15% of set aside funds automatically diverts a portion of the fees away from operating budgets, even when institutions are facing, budgetary gaps. I'm wondering, based on the policy that we have, where we've created a ceiling, and that ceiling is respectively 10 or 15% based on the institution, I'm wondering what it would look like if, rather than there was a ceiling, there was a floor. And so that there would be a minimum percentage that would be required by the institution for set aside funds. And just for the sake of, argument, let's just say that minimum is 5%. And if you're an institution that typically charges or charges, the set aside funds are at 10%, what room does it make sense that an institution would have then to be able to use those funds that are beyond the minimum to support students and the campus? And just the way that I was perceiving this was, it's almost like a built-in mechanism for the institutions where dollars are already coming in, but now there's dollars that are now being released for the institution, specifically where they would like to place some of those monies. And it gives the business officers, the presidents, now they're making decisions on how some student funding is going to go. And so I'm just curious if that would be something that is extraordinarily disruptive, or if setting a floor helps with the institution's ability to be able to support students. It's just in a different, it would just look different. It would just be in a different manner, but it's essentially the same concept and process. And maybe that was thrown out too quickly without warning, right? In terms of some out-of-the-box thinking. But based on where we are and recognizing that there's percentages of dollars that automatically go to areas where students don't need the financial assistance, perhaps another way of looking at this is placing those monies back with the institution and letting the institution decide where some of those funds would go. I'd love to hear look, I might be way off. I don't know if that's a possibility. And if it's not, that's okay. But just for purposes of discussion, I'm wondering if there's any president that would weigh in on, just so that we have a better understanding of how a minimum would hurt or support an institution, as opposed to setting a ceiling, a percentage. I appreciate you nodding your head while I'm speaking, President Klippenstein, and so I will ask if you will be brave enough to forge forward with this conversation.
I'll attempt to be brave enough. Chair Brooks, Stacy Klippenstein for the record. Thank you very much for the question. It's one of those things that I know has popped up over the last month or two with me, with dialogue, with whether it be the Regents or just internally ourselves. So if we have, for us, it's 10%, right? Of that, then 20% of the 10% would go into, I think, the area that you're talking about. And so for us, let's say that's about $1 million. So having that flexibility to say, how do we want to use that to re-engage in other type of initiatives that can support students, to repackage it in a way to support students in a non-need base that might be an initiative for us to meet a certain goal that could be aimed at retention, completion within certain programs. It could be assisting with students coming in with startup or short-term programs. I mean, there's flexibility I can see within, I think, what you're asking. So I would apologize. I hope I'm going down the right direction. But so could there be some allowance for that type of dialogue within that certain percentage that can come back that maybe at one point was for non-need? And yes, I mean, that would open up some dialogue in regards to that. Our goal would still to be to get it back to students in some sort of way that would benefit them to completion.
I appreciate that, President Klippenstein, and certainly that would be the goal, right, of how we proceed to get things done, because it's got to be able to get back to the students, and it's got to be able to support the institutions in ways that fill the gaps within the institution for what they need. And so, to your point, even if you maintained a 10% set aside fund, but you recognize the minimum is 5%, then it gives you greater flexibility beyond what would be considered the 20% of that 10%, because now you have your own measurement to decide what's best on your campus. And if it's one thing I think we can all recognize is that we're not in a one-size-fits-all environment when it comes to higher education, and the needs at one institution are going to be entirely different at another institution. And specifically, that comes into play when we talk about funding, student access, student success, awards being given. And so I appreciate the dialogue for that, and it sounds like from your perspective, even in this short conversation, that potentially there could be some advantages to your institution if there was a floor set in percentage rather than a ceiling set in percentage.
Chair Brooks, Stacy Klippenstein for the record again. Yes, I'd have to explore that a little bit more with the team, but would there be some flexibility built within that? There could be, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. President Heavey?
Chris Heavey, Interim President of UNLV for the record. Thanks for the question, Chair Brooks. As you mentioned in your earlier comments, students come with all kinds of needs beyond just the financial aid that meets the helps them afford the direct cost of the registration fee. And what I wanted to add is that we absolutely do a lot to try to meet those needs in addition to the access funds that are already allocated based on board policy. And like our colleagues, we use 100% of the access funds. For us, it's about $30 million a year that's awarded out to students. And we have a tremendous amount of need at our campus. So it's very easy for us to use that money to help students meet the direct educational costs. In addition to that, we have our food bank. We have other kinds of programs that do emergency loans, often using scholarship or donation dollars that are received by the colleges to meet some kinds of things like rental assistance and other things that might pop up on an emergency basis. If it were changed to be a floor, my guess is we would not change the profile of what we did as a campus very much, because those dollars really help students stay enrolled and meet the direct educational costs. And as I said, we're working very hard to support the other kinds of needs that many of our students have. So all in all, I know all of us are really working every day to make sure that we're customizing the packages of support available to every student in order to do everything that we can to help them be successful and stay enrolled through completion. Thank you.
Thank you, President Heavey, and I appreciate your perspective on that. And perhaps one of the areas of opportunity in something where a floor is being set, not a maximum, is that you have more flexibility in what you would want to do based on where your institution is at that time. So even if you decided, hey, we typically have a 15% set aside, but since the minimum is 5, we now have X amount of percentage to use in areas that before we may not have been able to use. And even if that's 1%, I would say that's a significant amount of money that could be used to support student access experience and awards given. But again, it's just part of, does that make sense or does it not make sense? Because at the end, the idea is to place this with the institutions and let them drive things in the best manner that they see fit for their specific institution. President Lopez Lassiter?
Yes, thank you, Chair Brooks. Acting President Lopez Lassiter, Nevada State University, for the record. Just want to share, for us, the current policy is working as intended, and I understand the discussion's intention is that flexibility. And so my, primary focus on where this could potentially land is just to ensure that that flexibility is there with the institution. Thank you.
Thank you, President. Regent Downs?
Thank you, Chair. So I do have a question to, I guess, to all the presidents. Are your students aware when they sign up for classes at your school, at your institution, are they aware of what that a certain percentage of their funds are going to this access fee? And are they happy with that? They're like, yeah, I think I should be paying 15% of my tuition of what I'm paying needs to go to other students. I'm not saying that facetiously. They might be thinking it's the greater good. But I'm curious if this is the kind of thing that they're in support of as students, or are they not aware of it and that's just part of the cost of going to school, they think?
President Hebe, interim president of UNLV, for the record, we believe students are aware. It is transparent, I believe, and we're advertising, the various types of scholarships that are available and, proactively awarding those to students to meet need with a focus on those who meet the priority application deadline, which is also, widely advertised to students in advance of their application. Thank you.
Thank you. President Sandoval?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Brian Sandoval, president of the University of Nevada, Reno. First, to be responsive to your question, Mr. Chair, obviously, giving us more discretion is always a positive thing, but I will tell you that we use 100% of those access fees as required by your policies. So we follow your policies very strictly. And if you were to change this and provide more discretion, and as you say, all the campuses are different, we would continue to use these funds in the same way that we have done them, because again, they're fully subscribed. And then with regard to Regent Downs' questions, and again, to you to Regent Downs, we do make our students aware, particularly to our student government, for the use of these funds. But again, I don't want there to be any type of suggestion that we're hiding anything. Again, we are following your policies. And this has been a policy that has been longstanding by the Board of Regents. And in fact, with regard to the pillars for the Board of Regents, the very first one is to increase access to higher education. And this is a very important component associated with that. And as I mentioned, we have 5,000 students, which is almost 1/3 of our student body, that heavily relies upon these access funds to be able to have access to our university. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
If I could respond to that, President Sandoval, I'm not suggesting you're hiding anything. Often, how many students know what all their fees are when they see the breakdown? Is there any kind of breakdown that says that this percentage of what you're paying this semester is going to student access fees? And if it's not something, and I wouldn't accuse any one institution of not highlighting that, I think it should be highlighted to students so that they're aware of what this is for all institutions, that they are aware of what they're putting into for those 5,000 students, for example, at UNR or whatever the percentages of other institutions, so that they're aware of what that is. And I'm just curious, is this again, a willingness on the part of students that they want to be part of the education for people who are need-based, or is it just what they have to do to be able to go to any particular institution?
Chair.
Just one moment, Regent Borland. Regent Downs, were you directing that
Yes, sir.
specifically to a president? It seemed like you were.
Well, it's still,
directing that to-
I just wanted to assure President Sandoval I wasn't picking on UNR by any means, but all schools, is it something that's up front for students to be aware of this fee? And so are they fine with it? And they're, yeah, I'm good with paying this extra money, or they feel they have to go, or is it just something they're unaware of? I think it'd be really nice if it was really highlighted, saying that, did you know that, I don't know, $2,000 of your fees this semester are going to pay for other students, so they don't have to pay anything? I mean, are they aware of that? So I would like to, it'd be nice if this was something that was more publicized, got some more light on it. Ideally, I think it'd be wonderful. It'd be a voluntary. Students say, yeah, I want to pay that extra, that 15% of my fees. And if we did the math, it's not 15% of what they'd have to pay, but because it's 85% is what they have to pay. That goes to their fees, to their costs. But it'd be interesting to see how many students would click a box to say, yeah, tax me a little more so I can provide for other students. That's my question.
Mr. Chair, this is Brian Sandoval, President of the University of Nevada in Reno, and to Regent Downs. I mean, we'd happily survey our students. I wouldn't call this a tax. And I also, I don't know where this is going, but if the students don't pay their full tuition, then that's going to be a cut to our university budget. So when we collect this money and use it for the access fees, that obviously goes into our entire university budget. And if you start reducing the amount of money that's coming in, then it's kind of the same conversation that we had just this last meeting with regard to the fee increases. And I'm just speculating, but I would probably believe that there would be some students that say, of course, I would prefer to pay less. But again, we can happily survey them. But as I said, I think there needs to be an understanding that this isn't something new. This is something that has been going on for many, many years. And it has been very beneficial to thousands and thousands of students that have matriculated through the community colleges and through the universities. And I think it has been one of the best policies that the Regents have adopted in order for, at least for us, I'll speak for our campus, to meet our land grant mission.
I appreciate that. I understand what you're saying. But it does benefit some students at the cost of other students. And so there's 5,000 students who benefit from this, and there's 15,000 students who then bear the burden of this. So, I see that, and that's just one of our institutions. So across the system, how does it impact students in general? So I don't know if anyone else has any input on that.
Chair Brooks, this is President Alexander at TMCC. Response to Regent Downs' question, the tuition and fees page, the webpage published by TMCC, lists all of the component portions of the registration fee package, also the application fee in the case of brand new students. And we spell out the Student Government Association fee, health and sports, academic success initiatives, and so forth. And there is other details about lab and special course fees and so forth that students can follow up on. But there is no line item specifically for the access fee here, because it is a set aside of the main portion of the reg fee. And there is information in the code that people could find, and there is information spelled out further in P&G, but the college does not advertise or market directly to students. Students in that case, when they pay their registration fees, do not see that a portion of their fee is set aside per code to support student groups in need-based categories. So that is something that's done really as a function of code by our accounting teams in order to fulfill that expectation. But we do not market that to students directly. The information is available should students wish to look for that information or inquire about it. We'd be happy to share that, but we do not market that directly on the webpage.
Thank you, President Alexander. Thank you, Regent Downs. Regent Boylan?
Thank you, Chair Brooks. I think Regent Downs is onto something here. I love it. He's a numbers guy. And we seem to always be heading more towards socialism. All these students who get support from other students. And I think we should have it in our code that the students know up front, not, oh, well, they'll go and find it, or if they're interested, how much of their money is going towards other students' education. That's socialism. And as I've seen it in Europe, that's a terrible, terrible thing. And maybe that's why our education system is so terrible, because do we have any sort of research on how many of those students who got free money from other students have bothered to, voluntarily give some of that money back to education when they are making money in the real world? I'm sure we don't have that research because we keep it hidden from our students who are paying up for other students. And I think Downs has got, Regent Downs, he's onto something. We need to discuss this further. It's really interesting. Thank you, Regent Downs, and thank you, Chair. That's enough.
Thank you, Regent Boylan. Regent Arascata?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chair Brooks. I think going down this pathway could come with great undulations. Bear with me on this. Right now, we have a procedures and guidelines manual and our Board of Regents manual. Our P&G manual, how many students, families, tuition payers read Chapter 7 of the P&G manual on a regular basis to understand what it's going to be costing 5 years down the road for a predictive pricing model? How many of them go to any of the chapters on the P&G manual that may not be applicable to that student in 4 years? We have students on each and every campus that pay a fee differential in order for construction. Just an example, right now at the University of Nevada, there is the new field house being built. The students all agreed that a $3.50 fee is necessary to finish this construction. However, how many of those students are going to be around when it's fully functionable? Well, not a lot of them. And that same thing happened with the business building, with the library. It happens on the campus of UNLV. It happens on each and every one of our campuses. President Sandoval brought up a very, very good point. Access. Our very first pillar of the NSHE policy is to provide equal access. This is an item in which we are providing an education to better provide to our workforce, to our needs, to the nurses, to the doctors, to the physical therapists, to the accountants, to every business policy here in the community, every business possible in our communities, statewide. This is something that if it is removed from policy, could not be just detrimental to the enrollment, but to the options and opportunities of those less advantaged than others. Removing this policy would cause great detriment, not just to the system, but to our entire state. Thank you for this time, Regent Brooks.
Yeah, thank you, Regent Arascata and President Havey.
Thank you. I'd just like to chime in support of some of what the colleagues have said. As Regent Eriscotta just noted, obviously access is the first strategic priority of the Board of Regents. And what we are doing is implementing board policy in our actions. And so it was the judgment of a prior board that the policy as it stood was wise in terms of creating a strong system and a workforce for our state. And I'll say that the historical data for higher education is actually quite poor in terms of it being a propagator, an equal opportunity propagator of privilege. If we look at the data, the value of a college degree has never shown more net increase in people's income than it does now. But historically, it was really just people who had prior access to wealth and resources that got higher education. And so the policy that was created by a former board was essentially trying to equalize that access so that everyone would have more equal ability to benefit from what universities and community colleges have to offer, which the data, continue to show is a great benefit to those students. And so I think it's a mistake to suggest that if we were to remove this, we would actually be doing the state a favor. I think we'd actually be hurting the state in terms of providing a well-trained workforce with equal access from people independent of the circumstances of their parents. So I'm strongly in favor of the current policy as it stands, and we believe it does a tremendous amount of good in creating a strong workforce for our state and making sure people from all zip codes and all backgrounds have the opportunity to benefit from higher education in Nevada. Thank you.
Thank you, President Heavey. I was just going to add that we recognize that the portion of student, access funds support both graduate and and undergraduate students, but those percentages vary, right? So 20% for undergraduate, 50% for graduate students. I believe that the institutions are best positioned to determine where dollars are spent and how things are moved when we're taking a look at student access, campus sustainability, and really student success. And so I was hoping to have some information where we put our institutions in a place of empowerment where they're directing the traffic on where these funds are moving and therefore setting a floor rather than a ceiling perhaps would provide the most flexibility. To other points that were made specific to policy, I think the board strongly feels, at least I do, if there's policy that's inhibiting an institution from moving in a way that best serves students, we'd want to recognize what that policy is and start making changes so that students benefit from appropriate policy change to support higher education. And I appreciate the robustness of the conversation. It's always nice when something is really presented for information and it allows so much dialogue to take place. I think it's a huge benefit. Are there any other comments?
Yes, sir.
Regent Boylan.
All right. Thank you, sir. I apologize. I always have to speak up because you might not see me, but I agree with what you just said and what President Heavey said. And we must open it up to students who can't afford it. But I don't believe that it should be done on the backs of other students. Why not go to the legislature? Why not ask them for 0.001% of the gambling, gaming money that comes into the state? We wouldn't do that. Would we dare? No. So I don't agree with it being, up to the students who are willing to pay. I'm still paying by sending my two sons through UNLV. So I'm paying back what I received, and I appreciate it. But no, I don't think that any of us on this board believe that we shouldn't do what President Heavey just said for Nevada, for everybody. But it's so easy to just take money from students and say, okay, we'll give it to this group of students who hopefully will vote for us when the time comes in the elections or something, because we keep them happy. So no, I'm not in favor of one group of students paying for another group of students. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Regent Borland. I don't see Regent Downs.
Thank you, Chair. So I do one question that maybe don't know if the CFO Baton can answer it, or if it's going to be one of the presidents. How much of this money goes to out-of-state students? Is another question I had. And I know this is not an action item today. I would like to see down the road. I'd like to see a survey, as President Sandoval suggested, asking all students across the campuses how they feel about the access fee. And I would like to have it prominent on each web page, not buried in Title IV, section whatever, on the board handbook, that guess what, you're paying this much money this semester that goes into a scholarship fund for other students. I think that that's an informed consent. I mean, we should expect that type of thing from any government agency. We shouldn't have, I don't want to call it hidden fees, but they should be aware that where this money is going. So I'd like to see this. I mean, this is not new business yet, but it would be nice to see this come back as an action item where we can have that sense of informed consent. I mean, I don't understand. Are we just trying to, I don't say trick them? I don't want to say it's tricking them, but just taking it without them having full knowledge. I'd like this to be more of a just upfront. Let's be honest about what it is. Let's be honest about our intention and go forward. So if someone can answer my question about, does this apply to out-of-state students as well?
Chris Fatone for the record. Regent Towns, the access fee set aside comes from the registration fee. So all students, in-state and non-resident students, are paying into the access fund through the registration fee. And I know I'm not prepared with, to be able to answer specifically any numbers with respect to non-resident students that may receive access awards. But I am certain we would not be excluding non-resident students from access awards because they are, like all students, paying the same fees into the fund.
Thank you, CFO Baton.
Thank you.
Thank you,
I have
Regent
a question,
Downs.
Regent, Chair Brooks. This is
Regent Del Carlo?
Del Carlo.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'd like to know, are there any student leaders at the meeting today that could weigh in on some of these concerns? Are the students aware, and do they support it with, maybe we'll do a survey. They do cost money, but what do our students leaders say about this if they're there, please?
Thank you, Regent Del Carlo. There are no students present in this special meeting today.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. I don't believe there's any, Regent Carvalho.
Thank you, Chair Brooks. I've been trying to talk to our chief of staff while also listening. I feel like maybe part of this is that the board may have a feeling that we don't have the visibility to this as to the level that we would like to see. As we talked about before, and Regent McGrath mentioned that, we want some more information on it. I think that that's really important for us to dig into more, and I appreciate your suggestion of changing the policy perhaps, and Chair Downs's questions, and I hear very much from the presidents how important this is for them, and I want to respect that and support them on that. So I wonder if just the underlying concern from the board is just a higher level of visibility into some of this, and so I would very much be in favor of seeing another agenda item in the future on this, so that we can have a clearer dialogue on what we'd like to see with it. I mean, I do wonder if perhaps I hear the appreciation of the flexibility of the campuses to use these funds in the ways that are important for them. But I also wonder if there's an opportunity for us to also decide that as a board, with the input of our presidents and chancellor, that we say that some of these funds go specifically to what access means for our students. Is that, I mean, I could speculate in all kinds of ways, but maybe just have some clarity on what it is that we really want these funds to go to, especially if we want to increase graduation rates or increase success in our gateway classes. I don't know. We can talk about that, but anyway, I think I've shared my point. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Regent Carvalho. So it sounds like between you and Regent Downs and maybe a few other regents, there could be a really a new business item that's put together really effectively, so that there could be more discussion about, percentages, ceilings, floors, and how things move for the benefit of the institution and students. I don't see any other hands up on the screen. I don't believe there's any other questions or comments. So thank you very much to all the presidents who participated in this. I don't think we anticipated that this would go as deep as it did and, spawn more questions. But clearly, we want to be able to put the institutions in a position where there's some discretionary use of funds and that students are looked after in the way that promotes access and success. So thank you very much. We'll move on to agenda item number 5, which is another new business item that's coming before the board. This has to do with staffing and position data. And in my notes, I have a note to turn this over to our CFO, Chris Fatone. I don't know if we're going to see a presentation or not, but
Thank you,
I will
Chair.
turn this over to you.
Thank you, Chair Chris Fatone. And I apologize if I misunderstood the assignment because I did not prepare a presentation for this item either. Following your January meeting, I know there was a request for additional information on staffing data. And so this data was prepared for you. I know it was just posted, I think, earlier this week as supplemental material. And it's 87 pages. Let me summarize, I think, what I provided. And again, I'm happy to answer questions, or I'm hoping it's helpful for the discussion you wanted to have today, but I'm also happy to answer questions as you may have them. So the document, it did start with a memorandum that explained what was included. I apologize, wasn't able to predict the page numbering on the reference material, but I'll give that to you now in case it's helpful. So the first bullet is a summary of the head count of each campus that is pulled as of November 1st of each year. And that date was just selected because it aligns with the IPEDS reporting date for our IPED survey. So the summaries represent filled position data on that period each year. That summary is the first, it's page 2 through 14, and that summary is essentially the same data that was shared as supplemental material before the January meeting. I think we added the part-time instructor line item to that material at your request, and so that material is provided there. Then the next 3 sub-bullets are subsets of that same data in more detail. So I took the three main categories. There's more categories than that, but academic faculty, part-time instructors, and then I combined into the administrative data, the administrative faculty, classified staff, and technologists. And so for each of those 3 areas, you have a head count of filled positions in that same time period, and it's in more detail for you. So by institution, for the academic faculty and part-time instructors, you see that data at a unit level, and the unit that's used there is a workday referred to unit. So that the numbering sequence, I just want to mention that they're sorted numerically by that workday unit, and that numbering sequence is arbitrary. So there's no rationale to why a unit may be receives number 1 versus number 20. They're just assigned as they're created in the system. And I didn't have the opportunity to sort them or organize them in any better way. So they're just sorted by that numerical unit number. The administrative positions I broke into a little more detail because I knew that was your area of interest for discussion. And so those pages are 38 through 64 in the material. And that breakdown goes to the cost center level within the units. So same heads up on the numbering scheme on cost centers. There's not a, it's just a random numerical sequential assigned number. And that's how I sorted them for lack of opportunity to do it in a better way. But it's within the unit, so you'll see the unit, and then within the unit, the cost center and the positions assigned. One other mention on the what that represents, these are financial account structures. These are not supervisory account structures. So the unit and cost center represent the financial chart organization. More often, primarily it does align with organizational structure also, so I don't want to suggest that it's not organizational structure. It's just that sometimes a position may be being funded from a particular area's funds, but it may have a cross-functional purpose or serve in other areas. So just a note that it is a financial account structure. It's not an organizational structure necessarily. Primarily it is, but not necessarily. The second main bullet is listing from 2019 through 2025 of the detailed executive and administrative faculty salary schedule E positions for 2019 and 2025. That was the specific information that was requested. It's a listing of those positions with the base salaries in each of those cases. And a note there, it is base salary only in that case. So that worksheet also includes at the front of it, I believe, the presidents and chancellors that was requested to include the housing and car allowances. That's pages 65 through 79 of the materials. And then the last bullet is the some aggregate base salary data. So the request was for aggregate base salaries by those main employee type categories. And so that data is provided for you there in the materials on page 80 through 87. And then the final page in that package 87 just has some kind of high-level trend information for you on the base salary data and the staffing data. So I know that was an awful lot of data, and I apologize. There was not an opportunity to put context toward it, so I know that may be, you'll probably have some questions, and I hope we'll be able to answer them for you today, but whatever we're not, I know we'll be able to do in the future, so.
Well, I appreciate that, CFO Vitone. I think with 125 pages of documentation, there may be a couple of questions, but let me turn this over to Regents who may have questions. Regent Downs.
Thank you, Chair. CFO Vitone, I really appreciate you putting this together. I mean, I'd say you've gone well above and beyond. You've given us so much information to go through. It's very helpful. I would like to, I mean, having this data is, I think, pivotal in trying to help us understand, are these institutions we have, are they right sized? And that's what I call it. I call it right sized. Do we have, I mean, I'm looking at the breakdowns in the different parts. When you have the percentages, I know we have part-time in there as well. Are we looking at balances the way they should be? I mean, should we have the majority of professional positions being non-academic? And that's my question. And it's probably, could it be a philosophical? I think it's also a, I mean, how do we want to do this? What is the mission of the institutions? What's the mission of the system? And I know I've talked to the chancellor about conducting some type of a study. I hate to hire an outside company to do this. I wonder if we have any people in-house that could compare, but given our funding structure, does our funding structure support so many admin positions that aren't directly deriving revenue, such as instructional positions are? And I cite this going back to the fee increase. I mean, if we didn't have such large overhead at all these institutions, would we have needed as much of a fee increase on students? So given the type of funding we have with state funding, and I know that we're ranked 49th, And do we want to compare with Florida and Wyoming? Or are there other factors to consider in there? Are we building our institutions in a way that reflects how we're funded? And I can recall, I'm not just speaking to drag on, but I can recall my own college. It was probably 13 years ago, whenever it was more than 13, it was probably 14 to 15. And we're having the funding cuts, and there's a lot of discussion about where we are with numbers. And being in Carson City, it came to the attention of the governor. And I guess the governor was quite surprised that we had more admin than we had academic faculty. And just, wait, how's that possible? And that was the outlier at the time, but now it seems to become the norm that we've grown admins much larger than academic faculty. So I would just like to have that further analysis down the road, maybe at the April meeting. I know we have a full March agenda, I'm sure, and it's too late to get onto that. But if we can come back and maybe do an action item, and I'm not sure exactly where to go with this, and I really look to my fellow regents to help us come to some analysis of where we should be looking at it. And I know comparing, but also understanding we are Nevada, we are a unique place. So should we try to fit some models? Should we accept this as it is? Should we look at some combination therein between the two? So I'd just like to, at some point, revisit this, and we have this data now that we can look at and ingest and for further discussion. So, but I really appreciate all the detail you've gone to putting this together. And I think it's another level of transparency that I think is necessary, especially for a public institution and with students paying fees, with the state giving us money. So we're able to see how it is structured. So thank you.
Thank you, Regent Downs.
Yeah.
Regent Borland.
Thank you, Chair Brooks. And I thank this presentation, should we say, or what was given to us by Vic. It's amazing. I just barely went through the pages, and I'm more lost than before because it's just so much stuff, but it's great stuff. And I think Regent Downs just mentioned if we could find somebody in-house. Well, at the beginning of the meeting, we had the public comment, and we had Dr. Robinson there, and he was saying practically the same words that I've been saying for 5 years, and I think he's been saying it for more. There's, the president to the vice president of the second president of the third vice president, and it just goes on and on and on. I still remember asking one of the presidents of CSN how many vice presidents they had, and he wasn't sure. 12, 10, 8. I think I say this every time when these topics come up at the meetings. And it's great to get all this assimilation and all this analysis. And Dr. Robinson could do it, I think, in 5 minutes for us because he's such a great professor. And I know him, he was my professor. So I think he could do it. But we just talk about it and nothing really ever happens because we ask for these and we don't get any information as to what's happening. I'm so glad Regent Downs made this an agenda item, and I wish it was an action item that we could do something about it so we can get some information and really get something done. But otherwise, I think it's going to be the same. Just kick it down the road. Next time, Dr. Robinson and other professors will let us know what's happening and how much admin we have at the top. We are top heavy. So I believe that we have the people in NSHE that can do this for us. So please, Chair or someone else, whoever feels they can put the words together like Downs, let's do something about this and let's come to a conclusion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Regent Borland. Regent Carvalho.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to also thank Regent Downs for bringing this forward. I think it's been eye-opening to see what we have and for your continued emphasis on this. I think it's helpful for all of us, and I get the impression maybe from some others that it's maybe not so needed, but I think it's important for us as the board to understand this information. I do have some questions, CFO Vatone. I almost demoted you to Regent. There are some anomalies on here that I am a little confused about. Like, I noticed that in some of the line items on the specific areas, I think starting on the, on page 68, starting there, I noticed that for some of the positions, there either wasn't it looks like there was no person in that seat either in 2019 or in 2025. And so at first I thought, okay, that makes sense. But then I noticed, and then I wondered, is it because it's a temporary person in that position? So first I'll ask that when there is nothing in that field, can you give some more detail on why?
Sure, Regent Carvalho, thank you for the question, Chris Fatone. These summaries were also put together from the same November 1st data for all the other headcount and comp summaries that are in the package. So where there is a position listed and there is a base salary figure in one period and not the other, it's just an indication that the position was not filled at that time. It may be the case in some cases that the position in 2025, as an example, if it was vacant, had been eliminated, or if in 19 it was vacant, or that there's no number, it may have been new since 19, but it's not. In the time period to put this together, that wasn't data that I could compile. So it could be simply timing. The position was vacant, and it can be that a position was new or eliminated. Any of those are possible where there's a gap in the number.
Is it possible that an empty field could also be an interim or acting?
Depending on, generally speaking, when a position is vacant and someone is serving as an interim, they are not always moved into the position that they're covering as an interim. So the vacancy could mean that there is an interim filling that role, but they are remaining in their position that they're actually contracted for. So it depends on the specific circumstances whether or not a campus will move the person into the vacant position while they're serving as interim, or whether they'll just have them cover the responsibilities as an interim but remain in their existing contracted position.
Could I comment on this issue?
Mm-hmm. Sure, as long as that's okay with the chair.
Yeah, of course. President Hevey.
Chris Hevey, interim president of UNLV. Thank you for the question, Carvalho. And, as you know, obviously I've been at the UNLV for a long time, and I spent a long time studying the data from UNLV. And the conclusion is that the data at the position level are not reliable because it's drawn from the workday reports of what the fund categories are. And the fund categories change over that period. And so you could spend a long time tracking the numbers in a particular line and asking the question, why have they gone up or down? I can give you one example that might help clarify this. So we have a access office where you get your Rebel card, which if you were a student at UNLV, which you are, you've seen that office. That office used to be in student affairs. Those positions were listed as student affairs positions. And so in 2019, it says there were 0 people. Eventually, it says there was 1 person because there were actually 4 people, but 3 of them were funded out of student fee, Rebel card fee account. Or it said there were 4 people, they were all student fee account funded. We were having to raise the cost of the Rebel card every year to keep up with the increasing cost of the personnel. So to make it better for the students to not charge so much for the Rebel card, we put 3 of those people on state positions, and so it went down to 1. So it looked like it was 0, it looked like it was 4, and now it looks like it's 1, and it's been 4 the whole time. And as you go into different lines, reorganizations, people move from the foundation. It looks like the president's office lost 50 people. They were actually foundation people that got transferred. And so at the level of the unit organization, they're not reliable, and each one of them is a very complex story. So I think you have to zoom out to try to understand large level trends unless you're going to spend a lot of time tracking the history of what happened at the organizational level, because the people move from different funds. And so up and down does not necessarily mean there are fewer people or more people. It could easily mean the people moved and the cost structure.
Well, thank you for that. And I appreciate that you've given that clarity. And I do see that throughout there. As you said, there's movement as institutions grow and change. I understand that. But of course, I have to key in on your statement that these data are not reliable in that case. And so that might be something that we need to maybe look at a little bit more closely. There was another specific example that I did want to point out. So I thought maybe part of it was, acting, interim versus permanent. But I see that the president of UNLV, as of November 1st, is the interim position right now. But then I see at Nevada State that there's no one in that position, and that may be because, as you mentioned, that we're showing that in a different position. But I guess what I'm struggling with is that we did have a president for a certain amount of time, and this is where it gets into the weeds, and it's very hard to really then look at the data. So this information is important, but it's not to maybe the level of detail that I think we had hoped for. And I don't know if it's even possible, especially to compare maybe 2019 to 2025. And perhaps other regions who are interested in this information can highlight exactly what they would like to see. But yes, President Hevy, I'm sure that you want to respond to some of that, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Regent Carvalho, for the question and for this overall discussion. And sort of going back to Regent Down's original point about this, I would have two, comments. One is that CFO Vitone presented data related to the student fee increase that showed the overall percentiles of staffing per FTE of the institutions at our most recent special board meeting. And for example, at UNLV, what it showed is that we're in the 20th percentile of administrative staffing per student FTE, and the 30th percentile of academic staffing. And so what it's showing is in both categories, and it was true almost across the board for all the institutions, we're well below the average in both administrative staffing and academic staffing per student FTE. And so that sort of goes along with this macro point that when we're 49th out of 50, nobody is overstaffed. And what I would say as a president, and I think I would speak for all the other presidents, is that what Regent Downs suggested should be an important consideration is absolutely our thought every day. How do we make our staffing most optimal to serve students? And so that is how we are occupying all of our time. In every reorganization, we're looking at how to save money, how to cut the numbers. The data that Bill Robinson shared in his opening comments were definitely interesting to me. The data over this time period are most problematic because it's 2019 to 2025. It has the COVID, it has the pandemic, it has the budget cuts, all those things. But absolutely every day, we as institutional leaders are thinking about where can we cut staffing? Are we overstaffed in some areas? How do we divert more money into frontline positions that are serving students within the strictures of the rules that are set by the board? It's a very complex conversation, as is reflected in the detail level of the data. And so for the board to try to immerse itself in that will be very challenging. But I will say that we are absolutely immersed in that and trying to ask those questions every day with our leadership teams about how we use every dollar to most effectively serve students. And that's, what I certainly know that you hold us, that's your expectation and what you hold us accountable for. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I don't want to dominate the conversation, so I'll end there.
Thank you, Regent Carvalho, and thank you, President Heavey, for being part of this conversation and shedding light on some things that have to do with what clearly may look like a problem stemming from how data is inputted and then extracted, and then what are the reporting processes that finally end up with the board, so that we can take a look at things that are happening at an institution, particularly when it comes to finance and budget, and then make assessments based on those reports. So thank you. Are there any other, I don't see any other regents who are have questions or comments, so we'll move to agenda item number 6, which is new business. At this time, are there any regents who would like to propose new business items?
I would, Chair.
Regent Downs?
I've already kind of stated earlier, but I would like to see this come back to us as an action item that we can look at forming some kind of a working group or some kind of a committee that includes maybe cross-sectional, including faculty, classified, and admin, to review this. And I know that the chancellor talked about doing an outside person or a group to do it. I don't know if we want to spend $20,000 or $30,000 on that, or if that's, maybe I'm being too cheap. But I'd like to find a way to delve into this and make those decisions. I realize that some of the presidents feel that every position is needed where they are, but I would like to look at this and see what the general case is. Second, I would like to also bring back the student fees for an action item to talk about what kind of notifications students should have when they're paying the access fee. Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Downs. Are there any other regents with new business?
This chair, or excuse me, this chair, Regent Del Carlo, please.
Go ahead, Regent Del Carlo.
Well, thank you. Back to Regent Downs' point and request for the continuation. I also think there really needs to be a narrative, a written narrative with conclusions, because you can read the numbers all you want. I looked all through it. I didn't come away with a whole lot of conclusions, and there needs to be an analysis after we do it, not just charts and numbers. So that's what I would like if that does come back. So that's my first one. And then I would like to see Title II, Chapter 1, Section 1.5.5 D1 reviewed to add some flexibility and just a complete review of our process. Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Del Carlo. Regent Breger?
Susan Breger for the record. I would like an update of my request for a voting system from, I think, January of 2024, maybe when did I get elected? And so I'd like to see an update at our very next meeting as to why, because it is archaic how we vote, and I think that we need to be more professional.
Thank you, Regent Breger. Regent Batista?
Yeah, Regent Batista for the record. There was a public comment earlier about getting clear definitions between academic faculty, administrative faculty, and executive administration, so there's not overlapping terms. That's it.
Thank you, Regent Batista. So you'd like to see an agenda item under new business that deals with the possible change of titles? Thank you, Regent Batista. And with that,
Regent or Chair Brooks, everyone.
Regent Del Carlo, go ahead.
Thank you. Because it was in item number 2, people talked about the timing. We did try to get that in earlier, but we missed the deadline. But when you don't know the deadline, how are you supposed to know? So I would like to see the regents have a deadline when things have to be submitted. That would be wonderful. That'd be one thing. And then the other would be, we come here and we get all this new business. They used to share the spreadsheet of what's been requested. I haven't seen that in a long, long time, and I think we should at least see it quarterly. Thank you.
Thank you, Regent DelCarlo. I don't believe there's any other new business items from Regents, so we will now move into agenda item number 7, which is public comment. Is there any public comment at GBC?
There is no public comment at this time.
Thank you. I don't see any public comment here at the system office in Las Vegas, which is unusual, so I'm just pausing for a moment to make sure that we have no public comment at the system office. We do not. SCS, is there any public comment on the phone?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have one caller with the phone number ending in 2686. Please press *6 to unmute, state and spell your name for the record, and you have 2 minutes to address the board.
Good afternoon. My name is Laura Naumann, Naumann. I'm former Senate Chair and Senior Faculty at Nevada State University. I wanted to comment on the discussion that occurred during Agenda Item 2. I did appreciate that the Regents engaged in thoughtful discussion, particularly about disagreeing with code but wanting to follow policy and the potential consequences that might result from making an exception in this case. Unfortunately, I wish that you would have put your votes on record and either voted it up or down instead of tabling it, but that's where we're at. I think moving forward in any capacity, including trying to change code quickly, is problematic. First, Nevada State constituency was very clear that we wanted new leadership found through a national search. For those reasons, we were actively opposed to an interim appointment of an internal candidate that could become permanent. The whole point of our existing code for acting presidents is to protect the integrity, fairness, and stability of the selection process. If an acting president is allowed to apply, they have an unfair competitive advantage over other candidates as the incumbent. They could be incentivized to act more politically rather than neutrally because they have close interaction with the board who's conducting the search. Second, top candidates may hesitate to apply if they believe the acting president is the inside favorite. And based on some of the comments that I heard today, it really does feel like there's a predetermined outcome in mind. Regent Brager effectively asked System Council, how can we find a way to make Amber president? I wish we would have made her interim so that she could become permanent. Watching this play out has eroded the trust that we have, and it really shows what a farce this board is. So I urge you to put this to rest. If Amber wants to apply, she can resign, and we'll pick a new officer in charge. Let the process play out that it has. We've spent money. We have a search. Let's get good candidates. Thank you.
That's all the callers we have at this time, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I appreciate that, SCS. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.